All right, now we're going to talk about how to solve polynomial equations. So, we've been learning to factor and learned all of our factoring techniques and our strategies, and there has to be a reason why we did all of that. And that reason was so that we could solve bigger and better equations. Let's say, the equations that we have done in the past, let's say that we had something like 3x plus 5 equals 14. Well, what does it mean to solve that equation? Remember, that means that we want to get x alone. We want to isolate that variable. So we would have to move everything away until we had the variable all by itself. So in this case, I would subtract 5 from both sides first. So I would have 3x equals 14 minus 5 would be 9. And then, still getting the x alone, we would have to divide both sides by 3 to get x equals 9 divided by 3 would be 3. So this would be our solution to this equation. Now, we could do those things just fine. We've really practiced on how to do them. But what if we had something like x squared, let me make my pen work there, x squared minus 5x equals negative 6. In this case, we don't have techniques to be able to solve that yet, because you remember, when we solve, it means that we want to get x alone. So we want to have x equals some number that we don't know what it is. But the problem here is that we have an x squared and we have an x. So that makes it more difficult to solve. But this is the exact reason why we've been learning to do all the factoring, so we can now solve these larger type problems. And in order to solve that, we're going to need a property, and that property is the zero product property. Now this says if the product of any two numbers is 0, then at least, or if the product of two numbers, I should say, is 0, then at least one of those numbers is 0. That is, if a times b equals 0, then a is 0, or b is 0, or both a and b are 0. So let's break this down and try and figure out what it's saying. What do I have to multiply times 5 in order to get 0? Well, the only thing that I can multiply times 5 and get 0 is 0. What if I said 5 times what number is 0? What does that number have to be? Well, that has to be a 0. That is exactly what this property is telling us. Anytime we multiply two things together and the answer is 0, then one of those things has to be 0. Or both of them could be 0, because isn't it true to say 0 times 0 equals 0? That's also true. So we're going to use this property as we're solving equations, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video.